Hey Chef, welcome back. I've recently made some perlite propagation videos and I have gotten some comments about how to set it up, how I maintain it. So I'm gonna run through some of the things that I do for my prop boxes, but I guess with that being said, propagation is not 100% guaranteed success. You will have some failures, but I'm also going to talk about how to optimize your propagations for success. There's just a few things that I've learned along the way that help these plants root in these perlite prop boxes. So let's get into it. I got these prop boxes from the dollar store for $2 a piece, but the important thing is you just want to make sure it has a clear lid. It's okay if it's colored and clear, you just can't have one that is completely opaque or blocks out the sunlight entirely. So make sure it is a clear lid. I have clear sides as well. I know people use like big bins, but I prefer the smaller little ones. If I had some larger cuttings, then obviously I would get a larger prop box, but for right now I just have these, they're kind of like a medium-sized Tupperware box, and they do really well for like single individual leaf cuttings and that sort of thing. So first thing is your prop box, make sure it has a clear lid. The reason why you want to have a clear lid is obviously you want your propagations in a bright sunny area. They need a lot of sunlight to photosynthesize in order to produce roots and eventually new growth. So you can't like stick them underneath a table or in a dark area and expect them to propagate. So the number one thing is you have to have a bright sunny location in order for the propagations to be successful. This is where I keep my prop box. This is my living room upstairs. Here's my plant table and stuff. And I put the prop boxes just on the floor. It's a couple feet back from my south-facing window, just soaking up all that beautiful Saskatchewan sunshine. And this is where I leave it year round. Hey, get your butt out of here. Get. And it seems to really like this spot, so it might get a little bit of direct sunlight. I know, okay, yeah, and here's Pickles too. It might get a little bit of direct sunlight throughout the day, but for the most part, it just gets that bright indirect light. And like I said, it really likes that spot, and this is where I just keep all my boxes. I usually have two and I just put them side by side. So, okay, so the next thing you want to do, I have a little bit of perlite in this box already. This is one that I previously used, so I'll be reusing it here again. I've just been letting the perlite dry out, but this is the brand that I use. It is Dutch Treat 10-liter perlite. The reason why I like this one specifically is it has pretty large chunky perlite. Let's see if I can, where's my little cup? And that's what I like, is the large chunky mixture and not the super fine stuff. So just dump that into the box. I'm gonna fill it up to about half full. So this container, you can see it's not quite half. I'm gonna be adding a little bit more. So just dump your perlite in like so. Just kind of level it out. I know there's other brands of perlite out there, but this one specifically has larger chunks. Some that I've used previously, they have much smaller perlite, but I like the nice chunky stuff. So just kind of even it out, and like I said, about half filled is typically what I do. So the next thing I do is add water to the perlite prop box. This is filtered tap water, and I fill it up just so that all the perlite is basically floating. I'm not going to keep the water in this prop box, but I'm going to filter it out, and I'll explain why here in a second. The reason why I add water into the prop box is so that all the perlite becomes saturated. It soaks up the water, and I'll let it sit there for a few minutes. Just got little pieces of plant in there. So yeah, I'll let all the perlite soak up the water, and then I'll simply just drain it out. So I put the lid on nice and secure like that on 3 corners, and I just drain out the excess water. Whoops. I just want the water to come out. You will get some fine perlite dust. Again, I don't typically care if that's in the prop box or not. I just want all the water drained out so that there's nothing pooling at the bottom of the prop box. Hopefully my container is large enough. I did put a lot of water in here just because I wanted to clean off some of the perlite that I used from the last time. I don't like sterilize it or sanitize it or anything like that. Everything looked nice and clean, nice and clear, so I'm not worried about reusing this perlite. And that's the nice thing about these perlite prop boxes, is you can keep using it and using it. And then once you're done with the propagations, you can actually add this back in as a soil amendment. So mix it in with like potting soil or something for your plants. You can see there's, I don't know if you can see or not, but the finer perlite is almost like a cloudy, dusty water. So let that drain through. I'll show you what the perlite looks like. You can see all the very fine perlite dust. Yeah, that's what I filter out of my prop boxes. Just want to say as well, don't dump that water and perlite down the drain. It will clog your drains. Perlite, just remove it or dump it outside or something like that. Just not down the drain. Okay, so here's what the perlite looks like after it has been drained. It's almost like a pasty consistency. If you squish the perlite, you can actually feel moisture on your fingers. So that's what I start off with. And you can see there's no pooling of water at the bottom. And that's how I basically leave it. So this is ready for your propagations to be placed into the container. I'm just going to use this one that already has propagations in it. Whenever I place the propagations in the perlite, you want to make sure that the stem is seated nicely in the perlite. So I'll just usually dig a small little hole, and then this one doesn't even have any roots on it. So I just dig a small little hole like that, place the cutting in, and just push the perlite around the stem. You want to make sure, or try to, not have any of the leaves touch the perlite. That can lead to potential rotting of the leaves, and yeah, that's probably not good. That's basically all I do for placement. Just stick them in there. Got a few wet sticks here as well, so I'll just lay those right on top of the perlite. So once you have the cuttings in the prop box, just put on the lid. I don't have any holes poked in the top of the lid here, but basically what I'll do is once a week or once every 2 weeks, I'll just take the lid off for maybe an hour or so, just let it get some fresh air. But I'll put it in its sunny location, keep the lid on, that way it can achieve that higher humidity. And that's all I do for basically the setup and placement of my propagations. Whenever I make a propagation video, I always forget to mention a heat mat. This helps roots establish faster. It just provides a nice, warm, cozy environment in these high moisture, high humidity prop boxes. So you can place it just on the mat and plug it into obviously an outlet, and it just provides a little bit of warmth for these propagations. And that's pretty much it. This is just another tip, I guess, in conjunction with that highlight location. And that's pretty much it. You just set it aside and give them time to root. It does take a while. Some plants are a little bit faster than others. Hoyas in these prop boxes, they're usually pretty fast. Like you'll maybe start to see roots in a week or two, where some other plants like Scindapsus, I've had them take upwards of like a month. And again, depending on the season, in summer you get that bright, intense light. In winter, the sun is a little bit less intense, so it might take a little bit longer to root in the winter. But this is it for my setup. Basically just set it aside. Set it and forget it. Check on it, maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks. But otherwise, just give it time, and you should have some nice roots in these prop boxes. One of the common questions I got was if I water my propagations, or how do I add water once they are already in the perlite prop box. So obviously you can't, just dump a bunch of water in here and strain it out, because you're gonna mess up the orientation of all the plants and cuttings. So the first thing is to obviously determine if it needs water or not. So basically you take the lid off, and like I mentioned before, I check the perlite. So give it a good squeeze, and you can see there's a little bit of moisture on my finger. So I know that this perlite is still saturated and it doesn't need water. Another thing that I look for is condensation on the lid and on the side. So obviously I've been taking the lid off like crazy. There's really no condensation on the lid. Plus I also cleaned it. It was a little bit dirty. So, but you can see it right here. There is some condensation on the side of the container. If it'll focus or not, but if the perlite is dry, or if the box is dry, you're not gonna see that condensation on the sides and on the top. So if you see that, does not need any water. So the next thing, if you've checked the perlite and if you don't see any condensation on the side, if you open your box a lot, it's probably gonna dry out pretty fast. So if you've determined that the perlite is dry and it needs water, I use just my mist bottle, and it's just a little pump action spray bottle. It's a 1 liter, 1 liter bottle, and basically I just spray down the perlite. just like that. And that's how I kind of rehydrate the perlite. Try to avoid water at the bottom because you don't want the cuttings sitting directly in water. It has the potential for rotting. So I just like to spray down the top and then just place the lid back on. And that's all I do for, I guess, topping up or rehydrating the perlite, is just spraying it down with the spray bottle. And then again, just paying attention to the top of the box, sides for condensation, and the perlite. So that's pretty much it. There's many different methods of propagations, and for me personally, I guess it depends on the plant. For example, if you have a Monstera deliciosa cutting, it's rather large. You can propagate those in water, but I've had really good success with just taking a cutting and putting it back in soil. So I guess it depends on the type of plant. Most Hoyas, as well as philodendrons, pothos, here's a little Cebu blue, just a wet stick. Those types of plants do really well for me in perlite, and I like to root in both water and perlite. But the advantage to perlite over water is I find it's much easier to transition these cuttings into soil than it is water cuttings into soil. If you have water roots, they're usually very delicate, and when you put them in a dense soil medium, it has the potential to kind of suffocate them, and you just have to make sure that you keep that soil moisture relatively damp for about the first 2 weeks, as you don't want those water roots to dry out. I find that doesn't really happen with these perlite propagated cuttings. So I can usually just stick this in soil and give it its normal watering routine. So you want to let the soil dry out in between waterings, but that's the advantage to perlite for me, is just that easy transition to soil when you do pot them up. I don't use fertilizer or any nutrients in here as well. Usually by the time they're ready to be potted up, you're going to be using some fresh soil anyways. Most commercial soils have fertilizer already in the soil, and it can last up to 3 months. So I don't add any nutrients or anything to the perlite. It's strictly just water and the cuttings. I think I've covered all that I've wanted to cover with the questions that I've had. I'm sure there's something I'm missing. There's definitely different methods of propagation boxes, different sizes. I'm just showing you what I've been doing with my propagations, and I've had pretty good success with most of my cuttings. And then, like I said, you will get the occasional one that doesn't root, but don't give up. You can try again, maybe try a different method. I know sphagnum moss is another extremely successful propagation medium or method. I particularly don't like it for the specifically with Hoyas, is just because it's really tough to take that sphagnum moss off the roots when you do decide to pot it up in soil or whatever it is you decide. But perlite and water propagation methods are the easiest for me. But yeah, let me know down in the comment section what method you use to propagate your plants, what type of plants you do propagate, and I guess maybe some circumstances where you've had failures, and then what you did to correct that issue. I think probably the number one thing is not having it in enough light. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you have any other comments or questions, please leave it down below. Thanks again for watching. I hope I covered all of your concerns about perlite prop boxes. I hope you found this useful, and yeah, happy propagating. Take care, everyone. Bye.